The bully's terrified of being humiliated, of being dominated by others, of being controlled by others. But mostly, I think it is humiliation and shame. The bully is afraid of being found out that he or she is essentially a coward and lacks any kind of self-esteem in any real sense of it. So before a bully can be exposed, they go on the attack. Hi everybody, time for another archetype video. This week we're going to dive into the bully, which has become a very popular archetype in our society. Kids are getting bullied all the time, but it's not just kids. I mean, bullying is happening all the time, everywhere. What is that about? When I was putting together my notes for this, I had a flashback memory of when I was in grade school. Of course, I went to a Catholic grade school, and it was run by these fabulous Franciscan nuns. And there was this one boy who was a bully. He was a bully. And part of what helped him be a bully was that he was taller than, he had a growth spurt, and he was taller than everyone else. Our nun, the Sister Emily, was short. I mean, she was probably, I don't know, 5'1" or something. I don't remember, but she was short, but she was magnificent. And one day, he swore at her. He swore at her. He called her a bitch. I mean, we're going back to the time where to say that to a nun, right? So this little nun walks up to him and she says, "Stand up and come to the front of the class with me." So he did, and he towered over her by at least a foot. And he looked down at her, and he had that kind of, you know, they get that kind of arrogant look on their face because they're scared. They're scared. And she said, "Now, say to my face in front of everybody what you just said, so they can all hear you, so they can all know what kind of person you are." And he just stood there and he looked back. And she said, "Say it again to my face in front of all your classmates so they can know what kind of person you are." And he said, I don't want to do that." And she said, "Oh, yes, you do. And you're going to. You're going to repeat what you said in front of all your classmates so they can hear what kind of person you are." And so he kind of mumbled, "I called you a bitch." She said, "What? I'm sorry, did all of you hear? Did all of you hear that?" She said, "Do it again." So she finally got it out of him, and by this time he was crying. And she said, "Now, second thing you're going to do is march yourself to the principal's office, call your parents, and tell them what you did. And if you don't, you'll never set foot into this classroom again. Not because I don't want you there, but because your classmates don't. Now go." Wow. I'm telling you, nobody breathed. And for the rest of the year, if I tell you this boy was on good behavior, you better believe it. I bet his parents smashed the hell out of him. What an elegant way to do that. I don't know where these girls came from, but those Franciscans were, I mean, she didn't lose her cool. She must have been exploding inside, but it was perfection. And when I tell you those boys respected this nun, I am not kidding you. She didn't even raise her voice. It was incredible. And of course, he didn't bully anybody else for the rest of the year either. What is the bully? Well, I think all of you know what a bully is, but let's just talk about it from a different point of view. I always bring archetypes into a discussion of power because everything's about power. Everything in the world, everything you do, everything you wear, everything you say, everything is a negotiation of power. Everything. And a bully is someone who is like you know how that expression, the emptiest can in the room is the loudest? Well, a bully is like that, is someone who has no sense of personal power, so they are drawn to people who have any kind of power and so all kinds of power intimidates a bully. Anything, anything you do, whether it's a skill at sports or being better in a subject at school or being better at work, or it doesn't matter what. If you have a form of power that they don't have, it doesn't occur to them to develop it within themselves. Instead, they want to destroy what you have within yourself as if that is a way for them to become empowered. But what is it that the bully is so terrified of? The bully is terrified of being humiliated, of being dominated by others, of being controlled by others. But mostly, I think it is humiliation and shame. The bully is afraid of being found out that he or she is essentially a coward and lacks any kind of self-esteem in any real sense of it. So before a bully can be exposed, they go on the attack. We see this with politicians all the time, and I won't bring up any names, but it's classic. It's destroy the person before they have a chance to possibly expose you for the coward or the weak person you really are. So they're always on the lookout for that. Always, always, always. Think of in how many movies and how many books are filled with stories of bullies, and people just can't wait for that bully to be destroyed. And of course, the classic story of David and Goliath, where David destroys Goliath with a stone, this great big huge man who bullies everybody, and David takes him down with one stone. And that has become the archetypal story of how to bring down a bully. Just stand up to them once and they back off. Just stand up to them once. And there's a lot of truth to that, actually. There's a lot of truth to that, because a bully, that psychic field, is essentially hollow. Because the person is not generating any sense of self by themselves at all. And how many stories of bullies, for example, when you see them, they have a little entourage, a little bunch of sycophants around them, because they can't seem to even stand up on their own in public. When one of the characteristics of bullies is they can be very charming in public. And I think of all of the women I know who've been bullied by their spouses or their partners. And in public, that relationship the person's very charming, very charming, as if to cover up the bullying aspects of that person. But the wife or the partner is terrified of doing just the wrong thing, of saying the wrong thing, of doing anything that would activate the bully in that person. And so, excuse me, they are forever on guard about what circumstances in their life might bring about their own demise. The story of Lord of the Flies, that classic, brilliant book about Jack the Coward, who eventually becomes the leader of this pack of boys that turn into like feral animals and killers on this island. But it was his own fear that led them into their own darkest selves, being led not by a real leader, but by a coward who became afraid of being taken over by someone else in the group. more qualified than him to lead this group. It's a classic story. I think we've all been bullied by someone in our lives. We've all felt it. Certainly as children, we have felt it. And I think the bully is associated with men, but make no mistake, women bully just as skillfully, but differently. They bully through gossip. They bully through excluding others from groups. They have tactics. Everybody has their tactics. But bullying essentially is a way of diminishing the power of another human being so that you feel safer. One of the characteristics of bullies is that they cannot take orders. They won't listen to someone else. They can't take orders. They really thrive on giving orders and on controlling their environment. So one of the key elements to a bully is that they must have control. And part of that comes from, I have no doubt, that they associate listening to another person as being told they're wrong about something. And if they're wrong, they'll be humiliated. And so they can't afford even to reach out for the wisdom of other people. That every form of feedback, everything, is interpreted in a bully's mind as an attack upon them, attack upon their mind, attack upon who they are, their looks, their whatever. They can't reach out to others for any kind of cooperative support. They give order, and they always have these like sycophants around them that cheer them on, because they have them believing that in fact they're very strong people, that they have these wonderful skills, but they don't. They don't. I think one of the reasons that the bully has emerged with such presence in our everyday life is because we are living in this era of power where developing self-esteem, developing ourselves, having a sense of who we are, agency, is in fact part of our development now. It's part of who we are. So that this ingredient of power is what we sense in each other and in ourselves. So we've become very, very mindful of it. If you turn back the clock, which I always do because I love history, I just love history. Nobody spoke about personal power really before the 60s. You go back, like to me, the great dividing line is entering the nuclear age. We are a different species. Our values are different. Why we get sick is different. We have a psychic life. And if someone now gets sick, they put their whole life on the table. Their stresses, their emotional needs, their psychological needs, maybe their spiritual needs, their history, their abuses, everything comes out. If you think that that's how people went to the doctor. In the 1930s and 40s, it was just, doc, I don't feel good. It was nothing like this. We put ourselves on psychic display in order to heal. We are a different species where the management of our power is everything. And so we've become very attuned, consciously or unconsciously, to the quality of power in other people, to the nature of their power, to who they are, to how they manage their power, and what their power means for our power. But add to that, the influence of the media, and that we're the generations that are now saturated in, look at this, videos, the internet, all kinds of images and media and movies and etc. that never existed before. I mean, so that how we understand power what it is, how we should be, what we should have, what we think our life should be like, is no longer just influenced like before World War II. That was largely influenced by your family, your church, your synagogue, your community. These were your influences that formed who you are, where you lived, your neighborhood. Today, those influences are global, and they're coming from any which way. They're coming from all kinds of things, all kinds of resources on the internet that are feeding into a person in terms of what they think they should look like, what they think they should have, who they think they should be, and how much they think they should have by a certain age. These unrealistic values have given rise to a real challenge on how to develop feeling good about yourself, and what it means to feel as though you are normal, as if you are normal. I mean, what is normal, right? So it's not, and then here's another thing, the way people are spoken to and how they speak. Like, I know I was born for something special. I'm very special. My children are special. This specialness is a part of our language that didn't exist before World War II. Nobody spoke in that way. Nobody would dare say, I was born for something special. It's interesting. I mean, I think there were people who had a sense of destiny. Abraham Lincoln did. There were people who did have a sense of destiny. But this idea that I was simply born for something special because that's who I am is like an epidemic of like a psychic disorder that really is worth pursuing in a longer conversation. But specialness has become this inner issue, so that the other side of it is that people hold being ordinary in contempt. Make me anything, but don't make me ordinary. And the consequence of that is that, if we're not exceptional in some way, then we're just ordinary. And then what? And then what? And so if someone is feeling that they have an absence of self-esteem, that it's not quite up to par, then you could see how bullying gets ignited in a society, especially in a society undergoing the amount of chaotic change that the United States is going through, or, dare I say, the entire world. Our whole configuration of this world is shifting. It's shifting dramatically. There are changes in our social structure, changes in the structure of power everywhere, so that the idea that this group of people should have power over this group of people, that brings out bullying. That brings out bullying in the form of white supremacy. That brings out bullying in legislative procedures and laws and rulings. Voting, who can vote? To be bullied by so that you go back into your place where you belong, so you don't come out and vote. Bullying immigrants. This is a tactic now of controlling how power is shifting in the country to bully others so that we can keep power at its status quo. The truth is, it won't work. It will delay. It's like, and here's the reason. And now we're really going to jump into another realm, but just for the sake of discussion, if you look at your own health and your body, that you have already absorbed a template that says, in order for me to be healthy, I have to be whole. I need to approach my health as a whole system. So the word whole and holism, holistic, has come to mean something. So imagine that this becoming whole is like the template, a new template that's been downloaded into the collective unconscious, almost like an impulse, almost like a homeopathic impulse that's been downloaded into the collective unconscious, telling us all we need to move toward holism. And how we have absorbed that, how we have felt that, is that we've incorporated it into how we approach our health. So that when you become ill, for example, and you go to a doctor, you want the whole of you taken into account in your health. And if the doctor said, you know what, you have a very sick heart and I have some medicine here, but it's going to blow out your kidneys and liver, but oh well, it'll save your heart. If you had any common sense at all, you would say, I need something that respects my whole body, where my whole body would heal. You're already thinking that way. You're thinking about, and what about the stresses that broke down my heart? And what about my emotional unfinished business? And et cetera, et cetera. So you are already thinking like that. That template of holism is just not about your body. It's about the collective body. It's about the collective body. And if you could view what's happening in the world through that lens, you'd see that so much of the chaos is the result of this, shall we say, the forces of evolution, the cosmic forces of evolution, moving the global community toward a greater consciousness in which we move like our body from thinking that every one of our organs is a sovereign nation to realizing in order for my body to thrive, all my organs have to have an equal say in how my body is run. And so if you think of your body as a micro earth, in that same way, all the nations of the earth are like micro organs of this one being. And it's time that it's shifting to a collective where we realize that climate change, the ecology, the community of humans will thrive better, will thrive much better if we see ourselves as a community sharing a planet rather than protecting our individual organ. This is where we're moving. Now, it'll take centuries to actually accommodate that shift. It'll take a long time, but that's where we're moving, toward this whole holistic thinking, where we become a community of beings on this planet Earth, instead of saying, I'm from this country and this state, and and this is my little world, and the fear that other nations might get more or have less, which gives another nation permission to bully that nation, to invade that nation, to say, I'm going to turn off your oil, to bully another nation into acquiescing its power. This bully archetype is much bigger than kids on the playground. It's an active agent in our atmosphere that says that gives the collective, that gives people permission to intimidate others, to control their way of thinking, to bully them with false doctrines so that they don't open their minds. and think about people differently, think about the world differently. Bullying is far bigger than just what two kids do to each other in a classroom, or what we witness when you see an encounter with a white supremacist in a grocery store with somebody. These are those behaviors are the consequences of people sensing that the balance of power is shifting. It is shifting. And it's not going to be regulated inevitably by the color of one's skin or the nation in which we live. It is shifting. And it is bringing out the bully in so many places because people think that they can bully people into slowing down this inevitable entry into the age of holism. But we can't. The only thing we can do is decide how rough the journey's going to be. And so far it's getting rougher and rougher because people don't want to accept other people. They don't want to empower other people. And so they're trying to bully people and nations into submission. Inevitably it will backfire because that's not the plan of evolution. And the greater plan will play out. Not in our lifetime, but that is what's going on. So I'm saying to you, every one of us might have encounters in which we have an opportunity to stand up to a bully, and to catch ourselves at thinking we could bully someone into something. It's a nasty trait. It's a nasty archetype. And the whole point of that archetype is truly, truly to find ways to empower others, to empower others, period. To realize I'm terrified of what they have. I should embrace their power instead of try and diminish it. It's a challenge for all human beings, absolutely all of us, absolutely all of us. This is our universal challenge of finding a way into this age of holism that is emerging within us, within our bio-spiritual ecology, and within the world outside of us. So, and I'm going to close with this. I think that if you are living with someone who's a bully, I mean, I'm not, but I know myself, and I almost did. There's just no way. Don't allow yourself to be bullied by anybody. Don't ever allow yourself to be bullied. Never. If that's it, move on. Get out. Free yourself. Okay, everybody. Thank you.